Rodriguez Salamanca. I am a plant pathologist and diagnostician with the Plant and Insect Diagnostic Clinic. Need help with a plant problem? Get in touch with your plant clinic. Did you know that Iowa State University has a plant clinic right in Iowa State campus? You can visit our website, clinic.ipm.iostate.edu. Our website has all the information of the services we offer, from identifications of insect, mushrooms, and plants, through nematode testing, and helping out with plant problem diagnostics. Let's look at this mint plant. What do you see in here? There's some leaves that have some spots. The lower leaves have more spots than the newer leaves. Some of the spots coalesce. There's no borders. What else can I see from this photo? Is this a disease? Could it be caused by bacteria? Perhaps by fungi? Could this be insect damage? So if you don't know, you may be trying to manage a problem with many tools without necessarily knowing what is that worked or help you really manage this problem. When we talk about integrated pest management for diseases in insects, remember that having that accurate disease or insect identification of what is causing the problem is going to be very important, as well as detecting it early and making sure that once you know what it is and you have confirmed, mitigate the problem now and learn what to do for the future. This could mean sprays, either insecticide or fungicides. Do you need to manage an insect vector and how? Should you plan a crop rotation in the future? Or can you manage your irrigation differently to prevent this problem? So when it comes to diagnostics, it's all about observation skills. Looking at the pattern of the symptoms in a particular site, either a greenhouse, high tunnel, or field. Are symptoms related or specific to an area, specific to a variety, specific to a location, close to the ditch, close to the vent, close to the entrance of the greenhouse or high tunnel? What is the pattern on the plant? Are the lower leaves affected or are the upper leaves affected? Is it one side of the plant? Are they all the leaves in the plant affected? What was the timeline? Did it suddenly appear? Did it change over time? Was there any progression? Or the problems just appear once and stayed static? And how can you collect information like this? In our scouting video, we talk about ways that you could scout and record your observations. Photos are a good way to do this. You can take lots of photos and video as you're noticing problems in the field, the high tunnel, or the greenhouse. You can then monitor those particular locations that are problematic to see if they change over time. If you're thinking that you want to keep more specific records, or you may then send a sample to us for help for diagnostics, feel free to use our submission form. In our submission form, we have built in a specific area where you can provide additional information, anything that you can think about this problem. Describe how it started, when did you notice, anything that you can think of will be helpful. Then in the second page of a form, you will find specific questions that we have for you. For example, practices that you have implemented in this particular greenhouse, high tunnel, or field. Or symptom specifics. What are the plant parts affected? The problem distribution, the prevalence in the area. What is the site and chemical history? What type of tactics have you used so far? From seed treatment, herbicides, fertilizer, insecticide. All those clues become important when we are investigating a case. Now, the next part is at the clinic, we will put together all this information, digital photos that you will share with us, the clues and information that you provided on the submission form, and a sample, where we then will observe, compare with your observations, and then decide what battery of tests we will be running. Let's go through an example here. Could this be a disease, a disorder, a nutritional problem? The symptoms that you see, I would describe here as some yellowing. The yellowing appears to be restricted by the veins, and I can't really tell anything else from this photo. Now, when you see this type of symptoms under dry conditions in the high tunnel, this is perhaps as much as you will be able to see in the pattern. Now, the question is there any evidence of an insect or a pathogen that may be involved with the symptoms? It depends. In this case, if you were to look at this tomato plant in a high tunnel on a morning with a lot of humidity and dew that has accumulated overnight, you may be able to see some brown fuzz right under those yellow spots that you saw on the top of the leaf. When you send it to me, regardless if it comes with the fuzz or not, I can then take that sample, either give the sample the humidity that needs so that those signs of the pathogen will develop, and then I will then proceed to use magnification. We have lots of microscopes and great tools in the clinic where we can look for signs of pathogens or evidence of pathogens. In this case, that brown fuzz is the spores of a fungal pathogen, Passiflora fulva. This fungal pathogen is the causal agent of tomato leaf gold. So a lot of what we can do in the clinic to help you out, it will depend on your observation skills, on your notes, on what you may suspect may be the problem, and let us know if you want specific tests or checks in submission form, but also on the quality of sample and the quantity of the sample that you will send us. We have lots of information on our website, clinic.ipm.istate.edu, where we try to give you some good examples of what are good samples that we really like to receive. If you're sending whole samples like this tomato in here, make sure that you dig the plants, shake the soil from the root ball, and any soil that is attached to the root ball, make sure it is contained. You can use a bag, you can use foil, anything to keep that root system contained, but do not detach it from the plant. Keep the plant intact. Likewise, if you have seedlings, you could pull those plugs and pack the plug, the soil, on aluminum foil, a little Ziploc bag, and then leave the foliar part free. So what happens is, if we don't get the root ball or the soil packed up and contained, while the sample is in transit, you may have a lot of soil that is going all over the plant. Now, we love to get as much tissue as possible. We can run more tests if you send us 3 to 5 plants or plugs. And all this information is also, you can find it on the Midwest Vegetable Production Guide for Commercial Growers on pages 44 and 46. Very often, my client thinks that I come from the future and that I do have a magical tricorder where I could then diagnose plants after the season. The truth is, when I get a sample like this, a tomato root system in November, there is very little I can do to help. Because unfortunately at this point, there's other organisms that are colonizing these tissues and that are not necessarily what caused the problem. So what happens when the sample gets to our clinic? Well, again, there is an observation exercise that we go through. We look at all the symptoms that we see in the different plant parts, roots, stems, leaves, etc. And then we start looking for evidence of pathogens or insects. Sometimes it may be fungal bodies, bacterial streaming, insect frass droppings, insects themselves. And then we use all our magnification tools to look for this tiny pathogens that are only visible under higher magnification. In some cases, like the example I talk about in the high tunnel with tomato, we will need to help out those pathogens to show up. And for that, we could either do a moist chamber. That means putting the plant or the tissue in high humidity. In some cases, especially for virus, we need to run a serology test that will reveal if a particular virus is present on the sample. In other cases, we need to lure that pathogen out of the plant tissue by putting it in this gelatinous matrix or little plates with agar and something that we call culturing. When we culture for bacteria will take to grow 2 to 4 days. When we culture fungi grow slower, and they can take 4, 7, 10, or 14 days to grow, depending on the pathogen that we are suspecting and aiming to recover. In some cases, when cases are challenging and we're hitting a roadblock, we do consult with experts locally here in Iowa State, regionally in the Midwest, but also nationally through the National Plant Diagnostic Network. After we have gathered all this information, we will prepare a report for you that will go either via email, unless you request a printout. We can also do that. Email is just the fastest. So just to summarize, as you notice a problem, make sure that you observe the symptoms and that you're taking photos and notes. Remember to look at the big picture, site characteristics, surroundings, what is the pattern, details in the plant per se, pattern in the plant, what are the tissues compromised. Collect as much information as possible. Take photos, we love videos too. Use a submission form to collect information and describe the situation to the best of your understanding. If you are going to collect a sample, make sure that you collect a good representative samples of what you're seeing. Make sure that it will be fresh for us to work with, meaning keep in mind the transit time that this particular sample will be in the mail. We recommend that you do not mail samples later in the week. Ideally, try and send samples Monday, Tuesday, no later than Wednesday, so that your samples get to us really fast. And include lots of information, clues in the submission form. When you get to us, we enter the sample into the database, we document with photos and do triage, and then from there we'll decide a course of action in terms of what you have requested, what are you concerned or suspecting the problem may be, and then also what other ideas of tests or suspicions the diagnosticians have. The report will tell you what we saw in the sample, what tests we run and what were the results, the information on the pest, if we found one, a pathogen, or if we think it's a disorder or abiotic in nature, meaning that there is no pathogen or insect associated with the sample, and the symptoms do fit a described disorder or abiotic problem. We will give you recommendations, and those may be improved sanitation in the greenhouse field or high tunnel, a crop rotation in the future, some varieties when there will be available for that particular problem, and whether grafting is important or not, for example. In some cases, it's not prescriptive. Not every problem has a fungicide or an insecticide application that is warranted. And then from there, your decisions can be information-based. In some cases, it may be remove a plant or treat an area. Sometimes the decisions have short-term implications. Other times they have long-term implications. And in other cases, you may not need to do anything but learn for the future. Going back to our original question, this photo, we were wondering, what was the problem here? Well, this is insect damage. So if you thought that this was a disease, you may be trying fungicides and some other things that may not help you out. And when you do something like that, you are losing money and affecting your bottom line. In a nutshell, be certain of what the problem is before you spray or invest in other tactics. Remember, we can help you at the Plant Clinic in Iowa State. We love to have lots of information, digital photos, lots of information on the submission form, a good representative sample, and we will always be consulting with experts as we find new problems or we need advice. The next video will be resources to manage vegetable disease and insects. Don't miss it. And again, my name is Lina Rodriguez. Thanks for watching.